Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 117-92 win. Riker, as Matt Devlin put it, the Knicks are trying for Zion because this whole game was a mess for them.
Absolutely. It looked like a dunk competition for Mitchell Robinson or a rec league game, or even better yet, if you follow any of the high school basketball, it looked like one of those scrims that LaMelo Ball would put together in one of the gyms, and where the guys are really not trying at all out there. But before we start any of that, before we get into the breakdown here, we got the comment of the day, and this was a lot of positive feedback, a lot of interesting takes on sort of the Kawhi Leonard situation, the most recent video that dropped, so definitely listen to that one if you haven't yet. But just Kareem Banks saying, "Dang, Toronto fans, we need to get this channel more subs with some fires." And then 6 responds, "I've been here since 200 subs." So right, a grassroots guy, and love the support from everybody. We're still growing, and yeah, so it's really good for everybody to be on board, and definitely subscribe if you're new. But if not, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
but let's break it down, Ben. Let's hear about tonight's game.
Yeah, shout out to all you guys who helped support the pod. But the Raptors, you mentioned it. The Toronto Raptors gave a shellacking to the New York Knicks. There's no other way to put it. Pascal Siakam, the leader of the Toronto Raptors tonight, 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Tracy McGrady had some weird comments earlier in the day about Pascal Siakam as most improved player. I think he quieted all those tonight with his big performance.
Well, you can bring it up. Let's just give the comment right now. We're obviously we're gonna give a fuller breakdown video about it, but it's worth mentioning in this podcast too.
Yeah, certainly. Tracy McGrady, they were brought up on The Jump, the ESPN show, about D'Angelo Russell versus Pascal Siakam in a most improved debate. And I believe it was Zach Lowe. He said that obviously it was Siakam because he's obviously been the most improved. But Raptor haters, Richard Jefferson, Tracy McGrady obviously couldn't give the credit to Pascal Siakam, saying, Tracy McGrady making the most blasphemous comment, saying that Pascal Siakam, did he even improve this season, which is absolutely absurd. And we're making a whole video on it. But tonight, what were your thoughts on just his all-around performance in this game? Because we're going to break down his whole season in a coming video.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he can do it all, it seems, right? And it's not a game. It's a game that he's really the only guy that seemed like he dominated. But I don't put too much weight on the New York Knicks games. Yeah. I forget which game it was, whether it was against the Thunder or the Hornets that we were talking about. It's really good to see him to be able to explore his ability to close games in tight situations, to be able to take clutch shots, to be able to go against elite defenders. Didn't really get any of that from the New York Knicks, but it's still good to see him put up 31 points and do a lot of stat sheet stuffing tonight.
Certainly. He had a couple, I know he shot 2 for 6 from the three-point line, but the couple threes he hit, they're kind of quick trigger threes, not his usual corner, relaxed, open ones. So that was pretty encouraging to see. Pascal Siakam, he's been showing it all season long, but there's some other players that played really well. Danny Green, he's a guy that hasn't been getting much, too much people talking about him, as he hasn't had any wild games as of late, but Nick Nurse has mentioned how he's cut back Danny Green's minutes because we've all heard about load management and all the injuries that have happened with all the players. Danny Green's consistently been in the lineup, but his minutes have been drastically cut down. He's been playing about 18 to 24 a game, so he's staying in a rhythm, but he's not getting overworked, and he's continuously knocking down threes left, right, and center. He has one of the highest percentages from the three-point line since the All-Star break, if not the highest. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 15 points for him at the beginning of this game really came out and just was splashing him. He was triggered. He had the hot hand. Danny Green's just been so consistent for us, and the fact that he's been knocking down threes at such a high clip is very encouraging heading into the playoffs.
Well, he's definitely been the most prolific three-point shooter for the Raptors, and like you said, if not for the league, because his numbers overall don't support that he's making a lot of buckets. But if you look at the box sheet tonight, 15 points on exclusively 5 three-pointers made, 5 for 8 at that. And it's really promising going into the playoffs, because usually, as we said, guys start off strong and then they fizzle away, but he's coming the other way around, so I'm looking forward to what he's going to be able to bring to the table. And playing him only 20 minutes a night, it's smart.
Yeah, certainly. Fred VanVleet was in the starting unit again tonight with Kawhi Leonard being out, and 12 points, 8 assists for Fred. Not the greatest shooting splits. Was unfortunately at the end of a lot of those Mitchell Robinson blocks, but he knocked down his threes. That's what we like to see, because the Toronto Raptors, I think outside the Rockets, have hit the most threes since the All-Star break, and a lot of that has to do with the new kind of offense switch with Marc Gasol in the lineup, and we'll get into what he provides in a couple minutes. But Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Kyle Lowry's 1 for 7 tonight, but he's just coming off that ankle injury. Norman Powell hit a few threes. He went 3 for 4 tonight. All the bench guys came in, and at the end in garbage time, Boucher, Miller, Meeks, McCaw, they were all hitting them. So it's very encouraging. This 3-point shooting, if we can consistently knock down those tray balls, the playoffs, it's going to be scary for any team that goes against us.
Let's talk about two stories here, Ben, because it's a game, interesting game, bad game if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
But let's shake things up a little bit. Let's talk about two stories. One, untraditionally, we'll talk about the New York Knicks for a minute. All right. One, tell me what happened with Mitchell Robinson here tonight. It seemed like all of his baskets, almost all 8 of his field goals made, were dunks, if you realize that, and 21 rebounds to boot. And also, Mario Ejonia, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring him up again in the segments. He's the worst defender in the league, if not ever, plus-minus of -26, team worst. Actually, we don't even need to discuss him. I just needed to mention it just to reiterate that point. But yeah, tell me about Mitchell Robinson. What did you see from the Knicks today? Because they had a lot of dunks, and it seems like they suck. They really do. But it seems like maybe they have something to build on at some point if they can figure it out.
Certainly, you brought up a segment idea. We'll give the DeMarre Carroll gold star to Hezonja. And obviously, Mitchell Robinson had a great game tonight. You mentioned had a dunk fest. He was out there. He performed better in the dunk contest tonight than Dennis Smith Jr. did in the actual dunk contest at the All-Star game. But Robinson, he was getting in the paint. He was all over the place. He's a very energetic guy. But the DeMarre Carroll gold star, I got to give it to him. Especially I believe it was the first half, the second quarter, when he got a lot of run. He's just so out of control. And tonight it played into his favor because, the Knicks were so lackluster and they needed some energy. But, every time there's a pump fake that goes up, he jumps at it, he swipes at it. And, down in the paint, that's a good thing because you want an energy big man. But he's so out of control. We remember in the last game, he took out Kyle Lowry. Obviously, it wasn't intentional, but his just out of control play, he tripped up Ibaka at one point. The Knicks, he plays like one of those guys in the rec league that's super athletic, but was like a football player or something in high school. That's.
You know what? An old coach said to me, Ben, back in junior high, he benched me for third quarter or something because I jumped on a pump fake, and he told me, Riker, you're not a ballerina. Stay on your feet. That was his words. He said, you're not going to get the block, so why even try? Mitchell Robinson might get the block, but he's not a ballerina either. Second story is that before I guess we really elaborate on other players or we swing into the segments, Jody Meeks is back. Yeah. He is, like you said, he's going to finish out, I guess, the season with the Toronto Raptors. We thought we saw the end of him after his 10-day contract expired. Is it good to have him back? Does it mean nothing? Does it mean anything?
Well, especially in his first stint with the Toronto Raptors, he was pretty good at coming in the game and, not necessarily needing the ball because there's a lot of shooters in the league that they aren't good when they're coming off, 10, 15 minutes of being ice cold. They're sitting on the bench. They usually need a couple minutes to get in rhythm. Jody Meeks has shown in at least his 10-day contract stint and his few other games with the Raptors that he can come in the game and just knock down a three. Play decent defense, be a solid veteran, so I think he'll be valuable insurance going to the playoffs. I don't think he'll be in the rotation at all if everyone's healthy, but he can certainly come in, and we saw it. He hasn't played for the Toronto Raptors in about 2-3 weeks, comes in this game, immediately knocks down a three, hits a couple buckets, 6 points for him in 5 minutes. I'm happy with Jody Meeks back on the roster. Obviously, maybe a guy like Markieff Morris or a higher profile name would have been more exciting. Obviously, we got Lynn as our main buyout candidate player, but Jody Meeks is a very solid shooter and kind of fits what the Raptors need if guys like Norm or McCaw are inconsistent in the playoffs.
Well, I don't want to blame it on Morris, but ever since he's been acquired by the Thunder, they've lost almost every game that they've played.
Yeah.
They've been horrible, but again, it's not on Morris, it's on the team chemistry issue. Maybe the last point before we swing into the segments, or would you rather do the segments first and then break down a player after?
There's one thing that I want to bring up, and then we'll swing into the segments.
All right.
Just the Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol kind of stint that they had in the third quarter, I believe it was. Nick Nurse, he's trying out different lineups, trying out different schemes. It was kind of cool to see the Raptors play. They were chilling in a zone. They were camping in a zone with our two centers on the court, Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka. Defensively, two of those guys they played pretty solid, and they had Pascal Siakam running the 3 position. Maybe that would be Kawhi in a playoff series, but I think maybe going up against a team like the Bucks, where their main guy is Giannis, and you can clog the paint with a zone with 2 bigs down low, and they have some 3-point shooters, but obviously they're not super lights out. If the 3 guys at the top can really contain the 3-point line, and this off defensively could work, this could be a tactic to shut down guys like Giannis, Ben Simmons, who aren't necessarily.
Well, no, the Bucks have designed themselves to be all 3-point shooters surrounding Giannis, so it actually is smart because you're going to have to play switch or else right off of screens, and that's what the Bucks do. They run a lot of screens, so it is smart to have if you switch off, you're switching into Pascal, Kawhi, Gasol, Ibaka. I think it'd be a very slow lineup. You wouldn't be able to run transition well at all, but it is possible, that in a lineup against the Bucks or even a big matchup against the 76ers, that it could be advantageous. But let's swing it into the segments.
Yeah, for sure. Tonight, the Kawhi do him like that play of the day. Pascal Siakam, he's always the fastest guy on the court. You mentioned how it's tough to run transition. You could have 4 of the slowest guys in the league on the court, and Pascal Siakam's out there. You're going to get at least 10, 12 fast break buckets that game. And tonight, the first half, he just was. The New York Knicks just didn't get back on defense. He got a couple dunks at the beginning of this one. One kind of half-court pass lob dunk to him. So that was pretty exciting. I don't know if you had any others in mind, Riker.
No, that sounds good with me.
Yeah, for sure. But not all plays can be the Kawhi do him like that play of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And tonight, I kind of already brought a bit of it up. My OG's play of the night, it's going to all those pump fakes, particularly one of Serge Ibaka. He was at the 3-point line. Everyone knows Serge Ibaka isn't the greatest 3-point shooter, even though he is a threat out there. Mitchell Robinson certainly thought he was probably Steph Curry or something, because Serge Ibaka got the ball at the 3-point line, threw up a little pump fake, and Mitchell Robinson jumped, and Serge, not necessarily catching on it super quick that Mitchell Robinson left his feet. He had to throw up another one to get him to jump again, and then went into the lane for an and one. Certainly made me say, oh, geez, watching that defensive play.
Yeah, that's good. I'm reliving it in my mind. Like I said, stay on your feet, man. Yep. Stay on your feet, or you're not gonna see very much playing time out there. Because it's one thing if you can't score, but it's a deal breaker if you can't defend.
Yeah.
And finally, the one, the only, the infamous, the DeMar Carroll Gold Star Award for worst performance. We already brought it up, but we're split again. Mario Jonia for me, the easy candidate. Mitchell Robinson for Ben. I don't know if we don't need to elaborate on it further, but what I want to talk about, the final point is Jeremy Lin, because we obviously had a lot of hype around Jeremy Lin. We were excited when we acquired him, and you mentioned, he was the big acquisition that we had.
Yeah.
And people have been very frustrated, to say the least, in recent games because he hasn't performed to expectations. He's been kind of bad offensively. And you said tonight, even though his numbers would mislead you to believe that he played all right, he really didn't. Somebody on Twitter said, CJ Miles with the blindfold would be better at hitting a 3. I mean, all of this here, this is discouraging things, at the very least, again, to say about Jeremy Lin. What are your thoughts on him?
Jeremy Lin, he's a guy, he is so talented. We know how great of a career he's had despite injuries. When he's healthy, he's a very productive player in this league. But unfortunately with the Toronto Raptors, it seems it's just his confidence is gone. Tonight you mentioned his stat line's a bit misleading because he had 12 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He had some good plays, some nice drives, but a lot of that came in kind of very garbage time for the Toronto Raptors New York Knicks game. It was when the game was completely over, and in the stint that he got in the first half when the game is still a bit competitive, both teams are kind of still trying out there, he just doesn't look confident. He's out there, because Jeremy Lin is a guy, he's supposed to be a solid 3-point shooter. We all know that Jeremy Lin, he was like a 37% 3-point shooter for his career. He can stroke it from the 3-point line. And unfortunately with the Toronto Raptors, he just always hesitates on those jumpers, waits for the person to close out, and he tries to attack seemingly on every possession. It was a frustration that we had with DeLon Wright, especially last season, that he would just pass up on open threes, and we needed DeLon Wright to get his 3-point shot going. And Jeremy Lin is an actual 3-point shooter, but he's just passing up on all these shots, and it's to the point where DeLon Wright was shooting and hitting more threes than Lin was from the beginning of the season. And Jeremy Lin, he is a great driver and all that, but the scouting report, everyone knows that Jeremy Lin has been struggling from outside with the Toronto Raptors now, and whenever he drives, they know, just clog the paint. He isn't a threat from his, we saw him hit a couple even mid-range jump shots in his first couple games. He's not even doing that anymore. So, he shows encouraging signs in garbage minutes, and that's where his kind of big stat lines have really come from. But I want to see it in times when the game matters. And I know Jeremy Lin's capable. It's all a confidence thing, and hopefully he gets it turned around by the playoff time.
But you know what is really, to me, it's frustrating is because you bring up DeLon Wright, and DeLon Wright is now playing better on the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, worse team, right? So more opportunities. It makes sense. He has more run, okay? But he's playing better. And then we also look at Marc Gasol, who had even higher expectations coming in on the trade with Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas is outplaying him. Marc Gasol tonight 0 for 4 from the field, only 2 points. The reason that it's valid to feel disappointed, to feel angry, to feel upset at the performance, and taking into account that, of course, you're bringing somebody in mid-season and you're putting them into a system where they're not familiar with right away, the chemistry isn't already built, it's offset by the fact that these are two veterans, absolute veterans in the league, that all of these things aside, you expect them to come out and at least give you a minimum of something that's at the range of or better than what you had traded away in order to acquire them. And what Jonas and DeLon was giving was good, right? But their potential wasn't fully reached because of what they were, sort of the role that they were in.
They weren't going to play.
So I expect them to both give me more than 10 points a game.
Yeah.
And they're not giving that at all. So I'm disappointed, to say the least.
I think we can make a whole video on Marc Gasol, because obviously the scoring has been a struggle for him, and he needs to score more than 0 points and 2 points in these single-digit games. But I think Marc Gasol's value is shown in other areas that isn't necessarily reflected in scoring, and that could be its whole video on its own, because it seems like every video that we make, we look at the comments below, there's at least 1 or 2 debates happening on if the trade was good or bad, so we should just make a whole video on that. But let us know what you guys think about the trade, our new acquisitions, who's going to play in the playoffs. There's so many topics heading into playoff time, even though the games aren't going to be super exciting, because a lot of teams are either tanking or whatnot, but there's a lot of encouraging storylines to watch out of these games, so stay tuned to the Raptors Digest. We're covering it all. You're the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Riker, any last words?
That's it for me. Good podcast. Cheers.